As you can see, it has a hole in the blade for precision control. If you're not cutting your food like this, what are you even doing? Probably using a chef's knife properly. Oh no! That's so bad. Look at that texture. Howdy and welcome back to the workshop. My name is Will Stelter and I am a professional bladesmith. I've been making knives for almost 10 years now and I specialize in culinary knives. I've won several awards for them and I'm currently on my way to becoming a master bladesmith in the American Bladesmith Society. Now, I spend a good bit of time on Instagram. That's a social media platform that I interact with people on the most, and I get an absolute ton of knife ads. The marketing is oftentimes very misleading, oftentimes very bad, and I've started to let it get to me. I made one video a couple weeks ago about testing out the Milk Street Nakiri, and today we're going to be testing out a totally different knife.
Matsudo knives are made from stainless steel using the same traditional techniques that blacksmiths use to forge samurai swords. This approach produces extra sharp knives that do not dull.
After it was banned for being too sharp for public use, it became a social media sensation, with chefs and amateurs showing off its crazy sharpness and durability until thousands of petitions brought it back onto the market. It does the work of an entire knife set all at once.
This thing, I have very low expectations for. I think it looks absolutely horrible, but they make a lot of absolutely wild claims about it. And it's kind of a very flashy thing. I could totally understand why people would end up buying this. So with that, let's dig on in to this here Matsudo Husk knife. Now, like I said, I purchased this knife. I think at the time of purchase, I got like a 60% off coupon or something like that, which if anyone's ever discounting something 60%, and it's not like a perishable good, then they're way marking it up way too much in the first place, in my opinion, unless there's like extenuating circumstances. So we got one Matsudo kitchen knife. Look at that. We created the most exception kitchen knife the world has ever seen. I think it'll be exceptionally bad. Horrifyingly nice packaging. Oh no. All right, so here we go. Got the sleeve off, the Matsudo knife, blacksmithing heritage at your fingertips. Got a nice little booklet here, precisely crafted to the last detail. That's all well and good. Alrighty. Wow. What a piece of craftsmanship. Holy smokes. Did you know that this was crafted? Oh no. I just cut myself. All right, so here is our knife. As you can see, it has a hole in the blade for precision control. If you're not cutting your food like this, what are you even doing? Probably using a chef's knife properly. Looks like we've got about an 1/8 inch full tang, a lanyard hole for all of the lanyards that everyone loves to hang off of their chef's knives. A forged texture, which to me looks like a MIG welded texturing die, probably done in a power hammer or press of some sort. And then a thin hollow ground blade. Now I'm guessing that it's going to be the same thickness right here as it is right there, just because I don't think that they did any actual forging on it, and because it feels like it's the same thickness. Now, the last knife review that I did, I had a couple of nice things to say about it. This one, I will be surprised if I have anything nice to say about it. Right off the bat, I think the handle is funkily shaped. The edge geometry is completely wrong. We'll talk about why in a second. The fact that there's a hole in the blade does absolutely nothing for me except for make me feel sad feelings. We've got some jimping here on the spine, which, why? We've got this nice aggressive hook back there, and as I just showed by being dumb, it's the only thing that's good for is cutting yourself. Wow, this whole thing is just horrifying to me. The one thing that I will say is that the scales sit flat on the tang. That's good, but it's an unstabilized, probably gonna accept water. Not a great handle material choice for this construction, in my opinion. Today's episode is sponsored by Aura. Aura is an online cybersecurity company that helps keep all of your personal information off of the internet. Now, if you guys are watching this video, you guys probably know that I make YouTube videos. I'm a relatively public figure, and if I knew 10 years ago what I know today, I don't even know if I would be on the internet. The amount of information out there is absolutely horrifying to me. And while I do love getting to make YouTube videos, I do not love having so much of my information just out there. Frankly, it scares the tar out of me. And that's where Aura comes in. Aura is a company that acts like a safeguard around all of your personal information. While your information is private and personal to you, there are thousands of companies out there that to them, it's just a little data set that they can sell off to the highest bidder. That's why you get scam calls and spam emails. That's why people can look up your name and find out where you live. And Aura does a great job at putting a stop to that. When I logged into Aura, they found 16 different data brokers that were already selling my personal information. That's not okay. Now, even though your data is already out there, Aura goes out to different companies and requests formally to have your data removed, which companies have to abide by. So Aura does tons of work on the back end to get your data back off of public sites to make it so that people can't just go and figure out everything about you. So if you guys value privacy like I do and you'd like to try out a 14-day free trial of Aura, you can go to aura.com/Will Stelter, and that link will be down in the description. Thank you very much, Aura, for sponsoring today's episode. With that, let's get back into it. Mazzotto was created by a group of culinary artists who saw that there was a strong need for a chef's knife that was functional, high quality, unique, user-friendly, and affordable. They got the affordable part down. Mazzotto's sharp stainless steel blade is curved to produce the best cuts with dimples that prevent food from sticking. Food's not going to stick anyway because of this nasty grind on it, but whatever. A premium oak, that's not oak. Oak wood handle provides security yet comfort, and a hole is designed for your index finger to afford better control and precision. All in all, Mazzotto is created to exceed expectations. Today, Mazzotto helps customers worldwide achieve their culinary dreams. Whether you are someone who works as a chef or someone who simply loves to cook, you will love the satisfying experience Mazzotto provides. And then, clearly, it has the perfect grip. The handles consist of high-quality roasted beechwood, not oak. Beechwood is a lot cheaper. 420J2. This says beech as well. Carbon 0.15 to 0.36, chromium 12 to 14%, manganese 1%, nickel 1%, phosphor 0.04%, silicon 0.03%, sulfur is S, silicon is Si. Alrighty, let's dig into the shape. Now, chef's knife shapes are very specific, and that's because you want to be as efficient as possible when slicing through whatever you're trying to cut. And so there are a couple different schools of thought. There are people that like to rock their knives like this, and there are people who like to push cut. Generally, Japanese cooking is usually a little bit more push cutty, and so their edge profiles are a little bit flatter. And then like a German or a French chef's knife is going to have a little bit more belly to it, so it rocks a little bit easier. That being said, there's still kind of a general consensus on what's acceptable edge shape wise. You want to have a larger flat toward the back of the blade and more of kind of an exponential curve up towards the tip. And we kind of have that because this right here is just wild, super gnarly, aggressive curve. If I want to have the tip of that contact the cutting board, my hand is at almost 90 degrees to the cutting board, which is never going to happen if I want to actually use that tip to slice through things. And then it doesn't really have that flat at the back, which is really important for good rocking. Because if I want to use the full length of this knife, say I'm cutting through something that long, that means that I need to rock the knife from right there all the way down to there. So I'm going like that. This knife is absolutely not designed to be used on a cutting board. Probably just because they had no idea what they were doing. Maybe they just didn't care. The next thing is the way that we interact with the knife is usually through the handle, and the most important place of the way that you interact with the knife, especially a chef's knife, is right here. This is where hot spots are going to come up. Most chefs are going to hold their knives in a pinch grip just like that. It gives you the best control over the blade, and it can be comfortable for a long time. So we hold knives like this. When I do this, surprisingly, my thumb actually falls right into that weird little swoop-de-doop right there on this side. That's actually surprisingly comfortable. And I do like that it's not sharp back here. That's good too. Where it is sharp is right there. This you could almost cut yourself on. That aggressive transition there is right where my middle finger hits. I mean, some people like to pinch grip their knives like that. I personally like to have my thumb and forefinger on either side. If I do that, I can wiggle this knife back and forth because there's a big old hole in the blade. But either way, some part of my hand is interacting with that sharp edge right there. No bueno. I do think the texture could have been a good idea had they done some actual forging to the blade and not just done a super quick texture to it. Texture like that can help food release. It can help the food fall off the sides of the blade, but that only kind of really applies if you have good edge geometry to begin with, which we do not. What we have here is a hollow grind, which I've actually never seen a hollow ground chef's knife before because logically it's a bad idea. It's easy to do, but it's not what you want for cutting through vegetables, because what happens, basically the shape of a hollow grind is like this, kind of like you think of a straight razor, where it's real thin down here and then it's ground on a wheel, and so you've got grinds like that. And so what happens is cutting from about here to right there is going to be really nice. So it'll go through herbs and stuff like that. It'll probably cut those pretty nicely. As soon as it gets through that, then it's running into an aggressive wedge. So as we start cutting into things, that first little bit is going to feel good, and then right after that, you're going to be like, that's not good. Yeah, just a bit of a bummer. We seem to have a reasonably thin edge. I would guess that it's probably somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch. Let's have a quick measure here. 15 thou, way too thick. About 3 times thicker than it should be. Still thinner than the last knife that we reviewed, but still not quite thin enough. The actual edge that came on it is a little bit of a bummer. It is sharp right back there where I cut my finger, but I can see the light glinting off of the blade, which means that they either didn't remove the burr all the way or they didn't get to truly fully sharp. My guess is that it probably just needs some stropping in order to bring that edge and strip that wire burr off the edge. You see, as you sharpen, say your bevel comes like that, but you've got a little flat spot because you haven't sharpened yet, and so as you bring it together, you cut that secondary bevel from the grind, and then it starts to work in a little bit, and there's a little bit of a wire bevel hanging on there because you sharpen on this side, and the wire bevel folds over there, and then you sharpen on this side, and the wire bevel folds over the other side. And so you strop on something soft that can kind of conform around the edge and pulls off that little strip. And I don't think that they did that on this knife. So let's check the weight on it. We're in grams right now, 178 grams. How many ounces is that? Because I'm a normal person. It's 6.3 ounces. And our blade is about 100 thou, 110 thou thick, depending on where you mic it at, or caliper it in this case. So there's no distal taper from right here to right there, which means that the blade is the same thickness. It's not a good thing for a chef's knife. Most chef's knives have a taller grind so that they go through things better. And if they don't have a taller grind, then they have a pretty aggressive distal taper. But it means that the knife is going to cut right here, the same that it cuts right there. It's actually going to cut even worse right here because they biffed the grind or the shaping of it or something like that. Bit of a bummer. And then I want to make sure that they didn't forge in the bevels at all either. Nope, we're at 100 thou at the top of the grind too. So it's the same thickness all across the width of the forged texture. This blade was absolutely not forged to shape, without a doubt. And then our overall length, our cutting edge is touch over 6 inches, 155 mil. 160 mil, somewhere in there. And our overall length is about 11 inches, touch shy of 11 inches, which is 275 mil. So with that, let's take it up to the kitchen and test it out against an actual Japanese knife and then one of my knives. Like I said, I have very low hopes for this. That hollow grind is just not a kitchen knife grind. It just isn't. All right. So here we go, moment of truth. Is this in fact the most exceptional kitchen knife ever made? Already the answer is no, but that's fine. The knives that we're really going to be comparing against is this $250 Japanese Sentoku, which is kind of what this claims to be, the kind of like traditionally made Japanese kitchen knife. We'll talk about why I think that this is going to do a lot better. And then one of my own custom kitchen knives, a really simple knife. No crazy, it's not S-ground, it doesn't have any crazy thing going on, but it's a very high performance knife, really enjoy using this one. And then we have this guy as well, which some of the claims about this knife is that it takes up the place of a whole knife set.
While other kitchen knives have more individualized uses, the Matsudo knife can do it all.
You don't need a whole knife set if you have this. That's not true. All of these knives have different purposes. They're all going to cut differently. They're all going to do different things well. I like to say that versatility is the enemy of efficiency, and that is especially true in knives. If something is okay at everything, it's not going to be great at anything. But we're going to get started with a paper cut. I'm not going to cut myself, we're just going to cut some paper, because another one of the claims is that this knife was banned from public use for being too sharp. We're going to see a normal kitchen knife. I like to keep my knives pretty sharp because sharp knives are more fun. Just have a listen to this. Hear that? Not a whole lot to hear. This one's kind of the same way. This one might be a little bit sharper. It's got a slightly thinner edge, and then Have a listen to this. You hear how it sounds grittier and how it didn't even want to finish that cut? That gritty sound is coming from the lower grit sharpening. This looks to me like they sharpened with maybe a 220 grit belt, if that. Either a 120 or a 220. It's just a very, very toothy edge. These were both sharpened to 6,000 or 8,000 grit, just a normal Waterstone sharpening process. But that toothy edge, it kind of acts like a saw blade, so it'll go through some stuff okay. Like it would bite really well on the skin of a tomato. But these go through tomatoes awfully well as well. And the thing about that is that if you imagine on a very microscopic level, each little grit mark right here is like a 120 grit scratch. And so there's these little points, and that's what's sawing through stuff. But each of those points is a lot easier to wear down. They don't have the strength of being closer together. And so this is going to get duller a lot faster than something with a higher grit edge. That is why we do high grit edges on knives. So without any further ado, let's do a little bit of cutting. We'll start off with something nice and easy, a potato. Everything cuts through potatoes well. Potatoes are not a hard thing to cut. So we're just going to go right in half. Like I said down at the shop, I think the first 3/8 of an inch is going to cut really well with this knife, and then I think after that it's going to start to wedge. So, yep. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that would be so challenging to cut with. Oh my gosh, that was awful. And you can kind of see on the surface texture of this potato here that it started to cut for the first little bit, and then that hollow grind wedges out. Started right there. The hollow grind wedges out, and it actually didn't really even cut this. It like tore the potato in half. That is astounding. Now that is something that it had the opportunity to wedge into. We'll do a couple slices now, and then we'll cut another potato in half. So we'll just try it again. Same thing. Do you hear that wedging, tearing sound? It's because the same thing, that last little bit, it started to tear rather than actually cut because it's wedging it open like a splitting maul on a piece of firewood. That is not at all what you want. We'll try it against this Santoku here. A little bit of that same noise, but definitely not the same texture. This has a fairly aggressive geometry where you can see it's a lot thicker right here with a thin distal taper, and then that's a pretty harsh grind line there, but it's a convex, not a concave or a hollow grind, and so it pushes food off and it doesn't wedge in the same way. We'll do a couple of slices. That cuts nice. Let's give the Matsato a go with some thinner slices. Because of how aggressive the angle of that is, it doesn't even want to cut all the way through unless you rock it fairly aggressively back and forth. You see, only the first half right there even cut through. That is astounding. So you'd have to push, cut, and then rock. And if you even wanted to rock your way through this whole thing, that's what you're dealing with, as opposed to a good edge shape. It's like half the movement, half the motion. But ideally, you don't have to rock hardly at all because it goes through easy. That is absolutely horrifying. Now I'm going to cut a whole potato in half with my chef's knife. Yep. Not even close to the same ripping texture. Again, I'm putting down a lot of pressure right now. Ow. That jimping right there really digs into the hand. And that same, you see it didn't cut the bottom of the potato, it ripped it in half. Oh, that is just horrifying. I wouldn't go after a knife like this. I would have had 0% interest if had just done good marketing for it, actual marketing for it, without straight up lying. Because look at that. Again, same thing. It's not even going through. If I want to go through the whole potato, wow. Just bad. Look at that. I actually cut all the way through. What a crazy concept. And then here's that much larger knife, and it does the same thing. Just nice and easy. Goes through how a chef's knife is supposed to. Next up, we're going to go ahead and cut this here onion in half. We're going to chop off both ends first. Oh, did you see that? I started to cut, and the edge slid and pushed the knife like that as I started to cut. Same thing right there. That profile is not what you want to see. When you cut the end off of an onion, it should just go straight through and be a nice flat cut. Oh my gosh. Things are not looking good for the old husk mazzado. All right. Oh, it went through. I think this has a little bit more give maybe than the potatoes do. Still not super impressive. One of the claims that they made is that this knife allows you to give much thinner slices. Oh my gosh. Do you see that steer that it had? Where it like, if I try and cut straight down, it like tries and pushes it off to the side. Oh my goodness. I think what happens is as it comes in contact with the top of that grind, it pushes the knife away. Wow. And then we go to reasonable chef's knife and, oh, lo and behold, straight down. What a concept. Crazy. Steer is not normally something that you have to deal with in chef's knives because normally they're ground evenly. Flat grinds don't really have any steer to them so long as it's relatively easy. But if it's a flat grind, then it's going to be even steer on either side, if that makes sense. But having something like this where it starts to cut and then is directed out of the way, you really feel it. I don't know if I'm articulating that well. I also am pretty well incapable of making actually thin slices with this knife. It just, the edge, the shape, all of that just doesn't work for it. So we'll move those out of the way. If you want really thin slices, those are some thin slices. Same thing, minimal movement to actually separate the cuts from the back of the food. And I am able to get really thin slices with this. I'm not trying to sabotage the mazzado. I just legitimately, if you try and take a thin slice, it just steers right out of the way. Ooh, yeah, that's bad. Just straight bad. I'm just feeling a little emotional about it. All right, next up we have a carrot. Now carrots are kind of notorious. Just the way that they cut, they like to kind of do that separating thing where they like shoot off, especially if you have bad or really thick geometry. Oh my gosh. Try and do a thin slice of a carrot and it just goes whoosh. Bad news, you guys. Bad news. Oh, they go whoosh. This guy, on the other hand, so same thing, you hear as it goes to that core, that kind of splitting. And obviously it's getting thinner here, so it's going to get easier as we cut, but we'll go back and do a couple of mazzado cuts here at the end. But we can do thin cuts. Part of the reason why we have the distal tapers integrated into knives so we can use the back end for slightly thicker stuff. At least this is why I do it. Maybe other people do it for different reasons. Use the back end for slightly thicker stuff and the tip for slightly thinner stuff. because there's less material up there, so it's going to go through easier. Those out of the way. Let's do a couple more cuts, trying to go thin. But again, the steer is so aggressive on this knife. It's about as thin as I think I'm going to get. Let's give it a try with like the back end here. Maybe a... That's really interesting, actually. As you try and pull through, you can watch the steer happen. That didn't steer. That's good. Whereas... It's why we don't hollow grind chef's knives. Just astounding to me that they're marketing this knife as being the most exceptional chef's knife. Look at that. So no control from me. I'm not trying to hold it steady. I just chopped through, and it steered like a 1/4 inch in that tiny little cut. That's bad. No steer. Oh my gosh. All right, moving on. We've got sweet potatoes. Should I put my finger through the precision guidance hole? It's going to guillotine my finger. I'm going to do it. Uh-oh, I can't go through because my finger's in the way. Oh my gosh, look at that. It busted it in half. Wow. Oh no! That's so bad. Look at that texture. Just ripped it in half. But again, that first like little bit, like there to there, is fine. There to there, that's okay. And then after that, things get a bit western. Oh man. We'll go ahead and cut this guy in half now. Oh. Oh my God. I mean, there's some of that texture. There's a little splitting, obviously. It's honestly a little bit surprising to me. I've never really paid super close attention to that before, but not nearly the same. And the feel of the cut is very, very different. Go ahead and get us a couple of good slices in. Nice. No tearing. And do me a thin slice. Nice thin slice. Wham bam. The steer itself. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so frustrating. What? Uh-oh. Did we lose our edge already? No, still got an edge. It's just not wanting to grab. Oh my gosh. The steer is real. I'm holding the knife straight up and down, and that is the profile of the cut that I'm getting. Insanity. And it's got this like super weird like fish scaly texture to it. All right, let's do a couple of like long drag through cuts. Even that, it's catching and then diverting the knife away. Do you see that? There we go. It's kind of straight. So if you have a little bit more material to be able to support it, you can do straighter cuts. But if you try and go thin with it, good luck. I don't even need to drag through for this. I think if we try that with the Matsato. Yep, same thing. And that's the same thickness of cut. and I have to bring the knife, like 8 inches off the table in order to be able to go through this sweet potato. Horrifying. All right. In conclusion, bad. I give it a 2 out of 10. If you bought one of these for $100, I'll pray for you. You're going to need some help in life. There are much, much better options on the market for $100 than that. And for $30. Honestly, the Victorinox Classic Chef's Knife, 1,000 times better than that. That might be one that we'll have to review in the future. The thing is that Victorinox doesn't do Instagram advertising that I have to look at all the time, and it doesn't make me angry enough to go out and buy one. I've spent so much time looking at the advertisements for these because they're entertainingly terrible. So between the last knife that I reviewed and this one, that one was at least designed to be used on a cutting board. It was designed to be a kitchen knife. This isn't even a kitchen knife. This is a nothing knife. This doesn't do anything well. It doesn't do anything mediocre even. The grind, the shape, all of that stuff is not good. I don't have anything good to say about this apart from the fact that their ads are entertaining to watch only because they're so bad. So if you guys have any other knives like these that you'd like to see get reviewed, we can break down, help you not fall for that bad knife marketing, keep on building out your repertoire of knowing exactly what to look for in a good knife. The worst things about this knife are the finger hole and the edge geometry. The finger hole is just a weird gimmick, but the edge geometry truly makes this unusable in the kitchen. So maybe it's a 1 out of 10. It might be a 1 out of 10. It's not very good. So huge thank you to Aura for sponsoring today's episode. Thank you to our patrons for patronizing us. And with that, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.